If you want to be able to buy the most expensive players and open the best packs in FC25, go to u7buy.com to buy your EA FC25 coins. It's cheaper than buying FC points and just as reliable. With their already amazing prices, you can get an extra 6% using promo code Inception at checkout. Hey guys, so it's been a while since we've done like real life football content. If you guys want to see more of this in the future, we could totally do it 100% because I do obviously watch real life football and I do have an opinion on certain things. So we can always talk about these situations when they do come up, right? So the video today is actually going to be based off of my thoughts towards Ruben Amorim going to Manchester United. Now, this is going to be coming from someone that does actually watch the Portuguese league, mainly the top 3 teams, as well as this team. So some people, they have seen me wear these kits in the past, and they think that it's a Benfica kit. And some people, because they already know that I like Porto, they're like, why are you wearing a Benfica kit? So this is not a Benfica kit, right? This is Santa Clara. So Santa Clara is an affiliate club from Benfica, right? I believe the way that the history goes is that they had former pro players that basically built this team. And the way that Santa Clara was built as a club was that they were essentially getting like B team, C team players from Benfica for them to build their club, but to also develop Benfica players, right? That's usually how the Portuguese league works because there's so much power behind the top 3 with Porto, Sporting, and Benfica that they do usually have some affiliate clubs, right? So this is one of the affiliate clubs from Benfica. That's why their logo is very similar. This is the same team that if you guys search in the league table nowadays, they're in 4th place. Let's get it. They're in 4th place, but they have a different logo. And the new logo is really sick because the new logo is based off of the Açorian flag. So that's what this is, right? Açores is basically, if you guys look at the map, it's like on the left side of the main continent of Portugal, but it's still Portugal. You know what I'm saying? But it's just where all the islands and stuff are. So you'll be from like specific islands from the Azores. The Azores will have like specific accents and stuff depending on where you're from. This team is from São Miguel Açores, right? More specifically, I believe it's Punta Delgada. That's the specific parts that it's actually from. So for me, you have to understand that when I was younger, the way that Portuguese people work, it's like this, guys. I'm going to explain it to you perfectly, okay? A lot of the times, even if you're from like specific parts of Portugal, you end up not supporting your local team. You just end up choosing the top 3. It's like, oh, what's your favorite color or whatever it is? And you kind of go from there, right? So me being younger and not knowing a team like this even exists because I don't even know what division they were in during that time period, right? I don't even, that's just how it is with Portuguese people. You just basically choose from the top 3 when you're at a young age. You're like, oh, this is the team that I like. And a big reason for me to like FC Porto, as you guys know, is because of Quaresma, right? Quaresma was my favorite player when I was younger, and it was like a really, really big reason as to why I liked the club. I liked the club initially, but then I fell in love with the club because of him specifically, right? But when I got older and I realized that this is a team that actually exists, I'm very like sentimental in that way where I want to support something that's like in my blood, basically, right? So I'm Canadian, so I like the Canadian national team. My ethnic background is Portuguese, so I like the Portuguese national team. And then I find out that this is an actual like localized club from where I'm from in the Azores, right? In the Açorian Islands, this country right here. It's fantastic. So you're getting an opinion from someone that like really pays attention to the Portuguese league, right? To the point of like, you guys probably don't even know what this team is. And it's like, you think it's Benfica. Like, no, this logo has been changed because it's kind of cringe that it looks like Benfica for a team that's in the top league. It's kind of stupid, right? They've changed it recently. Like I said, the eagle on the Açorian national team, they kind of base it off of that nowadays, and it's really nice. You guys should check out the kits. You guys have probably seen the kits when I do the Road to Glory episodes, and it's I like to wear the white and the blue one. So this is not a team that I started supporting based off of performance. This is just a team I supported because they are the local team, right? I even have their kits from last year, which is this one, right? So this one's really nice because it has the Zundage. So Zundage is basically like the waves, right? So you can see the waves of the ocean here. Really sick. And the way that they designed this one was really interesting because they have the stars from the flag essentially over here, right? You can see that at the back it says the Azores, and then they have like their sponsor at the bottom and stuff, right? So the main way to get this kit is if your family specifically goes to like the local shops there, because in Canada, like I've never seen this kit once over here, right? Because that's how like rare it actually is. So this is not like, oh, now we're in 4th place, all of a sudden I like the team. No, ever since they got back to the Portuguese league a couple of years back, because they got relegated and then they came back again, I just liked them being in the first league. So it's great that they're in 4th place now, and hopefully they continue to do well. But as I mentioned earlier, this is a video explaining my thoughts towards Ruben Amorim joining Manchester United. I just need to give you a little bit of a background because it's not coming from someone that doesn't watch the league, because I do watch the league very consistently, right? Me and my dad will usually watch some of the Portuguese teams over some of the bigger teams. It just depends on the situation, right? So I do want to talk about a few things when it comes to Ruben Amorim as a manager. And here's the thing, and it's very important to mention this, man. In football nowadays, if you give a manager 2 or 3 years and nothing is happening, you kind of have to move on, right? That's usually the case for a lot of the situations. But the only real reason for you to move on is if you notice that your team does not have an identity. If you can see that an identity is not being built, that's when you have to switch around your entire situation of your club, right? Especially with the manager. So, at some point when it came to Man United and you're watching them play and under Ten Hag, it just looked like they had no identity. And to be honest with you, and again, I'm saying this from like a regular viewer's perspective, just watching the football games, but some of the choices that he would make just kind of seemed idiotic, right? And for me, there was like a final straw when I saw him playing Mazraoui as a cam. It doesn't matter if Mazraoui knows how to play as a cam. You have a competent player in Christian Eriksen that can play in the cam position, and then you have players that can play in the CDM position that you're just choosing not to play there. So for me, I just thought it was a ridiculous thing to see in general, because the only time that you would actually play Mazraoui in the cam position is if you have no competent players to play in that area. It's kind of just stupid. I like whether he could play the position or not, if you have competent players there, it's just idiotic, right? Anyways, let's talk about Ruben Amorim, okay, as a manager. As a person that has watched FC Porto games against both Sporting Braga and Sporting, this guy, you have a genuine fear of facing him, okay? You have to remember that in one of the league titles that Sporting ended up winning, right? Because people are looking at Sporting from a perspective of, oh, but they have Gyökeres, and Gyökeres is one of the best strikers in the world, probably going to be sold for like 80 mils, something like that in the future. Sure, Gyökeres is a fantastic striker. He's definitely going to be sold for a lot of money in the future. But you have to understand that this is the same man, right, that has won the league table using different strikers in the past. So again, for this season, and for the season that they won the league recently, it was Gyökeres, right? But people need to remember that in the year that they won the league for the first time in like 20 years, the person who absolutely cooked that year was Pedro Gonçalves. And if you ask any Sporting fans what they think about Paulinho during that time period, even right now, because Paulinho's, great squad player to have as a striker, but they needed an actual striker to like really be that team. Because the moment they got a player like Gyökeres, working off of a player like Pedro Gonçalves, working off of a player like Edwards, who has gotten significantly better as the years have progressed, right? Like at first he wasn't that crazy, and then as he's progressed, he's gotten way better, right? It's a great team to work with after that progression has been made, right? But when he won that league in 2020, he wasn't working with a crazy striker, but he was working with, I would say, Pedro Gonçalves in a sense. You can maybe call him a winger, but he's not a winger like Neto. He is almost like it's not even necessarily like a false nine, but at the same time it is. He's like an Nkunku type, João Felix type of player, right? You don't necessarily play him as a striker, although they've probably done that sometimes with him in the past, to be honest with you, because he was cooking that year. but he's a player that works off of the striker. And this is the thing that we're going to be talking about if Ruben Amorim is going to go to Manchester United. So he has done it in the past without a top-class striker like Gyökeres. And you need to understand, guys, that Sporting they've never really been like a dangerous team before Ruben Amorim, okay? There was one specific time period where Sporting were actually doing pretty well, like development-wise. It was with Leonardo Jardim. If you guys don't remember Leonardo Jardim, Leonardo Jardim is the manager responsible for Monaco being really good during that time period before they sold all their players, Falcao, James Rodriguez, so on and so forth, right? They had a bunch of players there that they sold for a lot of money. Bernardo Silva, blah, 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 right? Jardim was like the first manager, in my opinion, and Sporting fans will have their opinion too, where, you know, he actually started to make a difference in Sporting, and you can see identity being changed. You can see like a play style being added, right? But at some point that changed as well. And then, you know, I think that's when he moved to like Monaco and stuff. I forget because it's in the past, right? But, you know, they recently got Ruben Amorim because here's what happened. He was the coach for Braga and he was cooking at Braga, okay? I think with FC Porto, we lost 2 finals against him. I think one might have been the League Cup, and then one might have been the Taça de Portugal, or it might have been 2 Taça de Portugal, which is basically the Portuguese Cup, right? And when we faced him, I'm like, yeah, this is gonna be an issue. Knockout football against this guy, this is gonna be an issue. And I'm pretty sure he won those cups. So winning cups with Braga is also impressive, okay? And this needs to be mentioned because this is not Sporting, this is not Porto, this is not Benfica, this is not the top 3. So him winning these cups was a really, really big deal. Same club, by the ways, that did end up facing FC Porto in the final for the Europa League. So to say that Braga is a bad team is not the case because they're a very well-developed team together, right? But Ruben Amorim was like a really good Kickstarter for that as well. During that time period of Braga getting the Europa League final, this is a throwback, but I think Paciencia was the coach for Braga during that time. Paciencia has like a son that plays striker, and there was like potential to strike with him being like the next striker for Portugal, but never really happened, obviously. Honestly, thank goodness, because we have like better players nowadays. But yeah, I'm pretty sure he was a manager during that time period. Bro, that's when we used to have like Hulk, Falcao, João Moutinho in the team, I think. Yeah, that FC Porto team was like really, really good, to be honest. But that's when like Braga hit the final. I'm pretty positive it was when they had Paciencia or Jardim. Was it Jardim there? No, I think it was Paciencia, I think, right? But anyways, like I was saying, the development that Braga saw under Ruben Amorim was fantastic. So that's when Sporting was like, we're going to spend money to get this guy, right? So they got him, and it made a huge difference. Guys, it's very important to mention that with Ruben Amorim, this is a manager that, as of right now, that still competes against Porto and Benfica, right? This is a manager that has done well to adapt to whatever players that he has given the situation, okay? The reason why I'm saying this is because he has sold players in the past, or he has gotten rid of players that were important for the team because they were on loan, and he still adapted nicely, right? Depending on the young talent that he can add into the squad and all that kind of stuff. For instance, used to have Ugart. Ugart went at some point. Ugart was a very important player for them. Used to have Pelinha. This is a time period where I was literally like begging Liverpool to buy him because he was being sold for such an incredibly cheap amount. I was like, it's so, like, I don't even know what, like, do these top clubs not even have like Portuguese scouts that watch these players? But anyways, yeah, Pelinha was 15 mil. I was like, brother, buy him. He's going to be so worth it. Went to Fulham and then got sold from Fulham for a good amount to Bayern, right? He had Pedro Porro. Pedro Porro was very good for them in the right wing back position because he likes to play this 3-back formation. Pedro Porro was fantastic that year, but I believe he was on loan from Man City during that time period, and then he got sold to Spurs at some point as well. But he was a very important player too, and so on and so forth, right? Like, players have changed in the team. Like, he used to have Coates, who like quality wise, I'm not gonna say like, oh my goodness, but he was a very strong captain, very, very important player in the team. And then Coates went to his home nationality, and now he's using a different center back. Like he uses Diomande more in his center back position. He uses different center backs in general now. Even Eduardo Quaresma has developed nicely into a better player nowadays. Because back then, I think when they won the league initially, he was a player that was on loan, I believe, at Paços Ferreira, and he was just developing there. Like I even meant, I think I might even have a tweet saying like, oh, this Eduardo Quaresma guy is like trouble to play against, right? Because it was FC Porto versus Paços Ferreira, and I was like, yo, this guy has a lot of potential, right? So there's a lot of potential with Eduardo Quaresma as well, right? But I'm just letting you know that this is a manager that has constantly had changes in his team and has developed nicely. What's important to mention is that if he gets transferred to Manchester United, in professional football nowadays, there is absolutely no guarantee that you're going to get a manager that's going to perform for your team right away, or you're going to see things right away. Like it's just not how it works. In football nowadays, a lot of the times, if you are not seeing an identity change within, like, I would say 3 years, 4 years of the manager being there, especially if they've had a transfer market, they've looked into the players that might suit their play style a little bit more, then you just have to move on. This is what the top clubs have done recently over the years, because it just makes sense for you to progress as a club. Real Madrid have done it in the past. Barcelona have done it in the past. They have constantly been changing because it's necessary for growth in your team, right? You need to find something that's going to make the glue stick in your squad. So with Ruben Amorim, right, it's very important to mention that hopefully if he gets transferred to Manchester United, he is going to provide a different identity, okay? This is the main and important part. If you are not getting results right away, maybe some ties, maybe some losses, maybe some wins, but you see an identity being built, you've got to stick with it. Because when there is an identity there, you can build on it and become significantly better, okay? You have a manager in Eric Ten Hag, who at some point you didn't see the identity. You didn't see the identity anymore. There was nothing special about how they were playing with the players they had. And we'll talk about the players that they have, right, as well, because of the work rates and all that kind of stuff. But there was just no identity, right? And when you're starting to see that over a long period of time, if your manager has been in the club for a long time, you have to get rid of them. That's just, I'm sorry, but that's just how it works, because then you're just going to be constantly playing games where there's just not really much going on. The reason why I'm saying this is because Arteta at Arsenal, so Arsenal fans will be able to attest to this as well. He had a time period where there was like a run of games. It might have been 9 or 8 games where he wasn't doing that well results wise. But if you didn't watch football with your eyes closed and you were actually watching those games, you can tell that an identity was being built on, right? And if the management at Arsenal saw that as well and they gave him the faith, there was crazy potential to work with there, okay? And you can build off of that. Manchester United at a point had Ole Gunnar Solskjaer as the manager, right? They were playing mostly in a 4-2-3-1 system, right? At some point, they got rid of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Then they got Ralf Ragnick, and then Ralf Ragnick was also playing a 4-2-3-1 system. Believe it or not, and Man United fans will also be able to attest to this, Ralf Ragnick actually kind of figured it out a little bit before he left Manchester United. If you actually watched those last, I think it was like 3 or 4 games for Manchester United, I don't know what happened, but in that 4-2-3-1 with Juan Mata playing cam and Ronaldo playing striker, brother, they were cooking, bro. Like, they were cooking something special. So I was like, this is what I'm saying about identity. When you see something like that, you have to build it off of that, right? You have to like see these things. And don't get me wrong, you know, Ronaldo came out and did an interview. He's like, oh, you can't really hire someone like Ralf Ragnick because you can't really build off of that. But look at what happens, guys, right? Because I said this during this time period when he was still the manager. I'm like, oh, they actually look like they're playing really well in these last games. Not initially, but in these last games, it's like he kind of figured it out, you know? But then I'm pretty sure Juan Mata left that same year, so it was going to change and all that kind of stuff, right? But look at what happened. Ralf Ragnick started coaching Austria, and he was doing such a good job there. You wouldn't expect Austria to be a team that performs well or to qualify into these group stages or to get the points, but he did it with them. So to say that he's an incompetent manager in general would be false, right? Because that's a fantastic accomplishment to do it with Austria. So again, when you're a management or you're the management of a club, you have to see that. It's, the key word here is identity. If you're not seeing that, that's when you move on. But if you are, it's like, yo, we can build off of this. Okay. So what I'm hoping, if I see Ruben Amorim going to Manchester United, and thank God, because I'm going to tell you this right now, Ruben Amorim this year, I'm pretty sure would have won the league, maybe would have actually performed well in the Champions League, right? He would have gone like a decent distance, I think, because in the league, they're so dominant, right? Like, I don't think Porto and Benfica would have had a chance against Sporting this year. That's why Sporting fans, they feel betrayed that he's going to leave. Listen, football is a business nowadays, okay? If you get an opportunity that's that big and the club is willing to pay your release clause, you're going to take that opportunity. You're surprised at a manager leaving your club when he literally went to London for West Ham to negotiate some sort of contract deal that he was going to potentially do there, and then it just didn't end up happening. Then he had to go back to Sporting and apologize, this and that. You're surprised that a manager that did that is going to decline Manchester United giving him the release clause? No. Sporting is not the team that wants to let go of him. I'm sure that if the release clause is paid off and Ruben Amorim wants to go, then he's well within his right to go. And if I was a Sporting fan, right, don't get me wrong, I would be upset in the sense of, dang, we can win the league yet again this year. And remember, Sporting fans did not win the league on a consistent basis for a very long time, right? 20 years since that first title that they won in 2020, right? Or 2020, 2021, I'm pretty sure. And then they won the league again last year. So imagine being in their position. Oh my goodness, we can win a third league, which I'm going to be honest was most likely going to happen. So I get it in that sense, but I also would approach it in a situation where I would appreciate the manager because he transformed your club into a team that can win the league and has won it twice in the last 4 years, right? Where you didn't win it for 20. So there has to be a form of appreciation there, even if he's leaving the club. There just has to be. I'm sorry, right? If this was FC Porto not winning the league for 20 years and then we won the league and then the guy's halfway through the season on a season that we're doing well, leaves the club, hey man, do your thing. Live your life, get paid, get paid that $1, it's your job. You're looking for a promotion, makes sense, you know? The loyalty thing, it doesn't make sense at a certain point, guys, because it's a business, right? And they're paying the release clause, and Manchester United is a big club, regardless of the place that they're in. When it comes to world football, they are one of the biggest clubs. So, what's important to mention is that if Ruben Amorim goes to Manchester United, he has to bring a new identity. The first thing that I want to mention is that if he's going to this club, it is because he is going to bring his consistent 3-back play style that he has been doing for these different clubs in Braga and in Sporting to Manchester United. Because to be honest, they're the type of team that actually has a sort of players that can fit this sort of play style. Okay, so with me being a FIFA content creator, I am going to use a squad builder for this. So let me just build this really quick. Okay, sorry, just had to like build a team basically off of what they could potentially go with, right? So I need to mention this because this is very important with how Sporting's team currently plays and the types of players that they have, because this is very, very important to mention. Okay, I want you guys to take a look at Sporting's team and the types of players that they have. So if we go to, we'll see the Toss of the Liga. No, they don't have the team. I don't think so. It was with Harder and stuff. Yeah, I'm telling you, I watch these games, okay? So he's using a bunch of different players here in certain positions. So that's not like the real lineup. The real lineup would be the league games. So it would be results. We'll go to the last like league game here. Oh, Lee, that took a while. Sorry. There we go. Okay. So this would be like a good representation of it because this is actually showing their lineup. By the way, guys, FC Porto this year, with us getting the basically the assistant manager, like we play pretty good football now because we got Samu nowadays, and Samu is a monster. So don't get me wrong, it would have been a competition, right? But like I'm just saying that Sporting is just really good. Like there's potential for them to win the league again. But Porto, like this year, very solid, man. Very, very solid. Like a lot of, but again, you get those strikers that are like just absolutely cooked, like Samu, like brother. It's crazy. But anyways, yeah. So this is like a really, really good team to showcase the types of players that they actually have in their squad. So very key thing to mention here, and Sporting fans will tell you the same thing. Okay, the players that they play in these positions here, they're not wingers, guys. They are and they're not. They are left forwards and right forwards. Okay. If you watch like if you watch the Portuguese national team, every time we get Pedro Gonçalves or Trincão in the team, you can tell that they're so used to playing off of like that right forward, left forward role, right? That's just what they play in Sporting. And this is very key to mention because Sporting's play style really, really revolves around crazy work rates with their left mids and their right mids. Nuno Santos has been a very consistent player at this work rate situation in that area. And then this is new, right? Like I told you guys earlier, they used to have like Pedro Porro in the past. They've used like different players here in the past. Now he uses Kenda there, right? But that is like the focal points of their team. And it gets you thinking, right? Okay, Manchester United recently have been getting linked to Alphonso Davies. In order for them to be getting linked to Alphonso Davies, it's because they are planning on doing something different in the future. Because this was a rumor before Ten Hag got sacked, right? And now Davies is apparently a rumor. And I'll tell you this right now, that if Davies were to go to Manchester United, and they would probably have to give him a fat bag, to be honest, right? But if he were to go to Manchester United and he's playing in the left mid position and you have Diogo Dalot playing in the right mid position, there's a lot of potential to work with there. A lot. And to be honest with you, knowing Ruben Amorim, there's moments where I wouldn't be surprised if he did that. Not with Euro, but I'm saying like with Diogo Dalot playing him at center back and then getting like a different right mid and stuff. I wouldn't be surprised at him doing that because of Diogo Dalot's build up capabilities. You know what I'm saying? So there's definitely potential with him doing that. But I just want you guys to take a look at this team. Left forward, right forward, working off of the striker. Okay. And then you have the work rates in your left mid, right mid position, but then you also have the work rates between your two center mids. For me, I think that the balance of having Ugarte, Bruno Fernandes would be a really, really good balance to have within a team. And another very interesting thing to mention is that I think that Kobe with Ruben Amorim can further develop as a player as well. There's going to be moments where I could see him starting too, maybe ahead of Bruno, depending, right? Because Bruno can set up a lot of creative attacking plays, so it wouldn't necessarily always be like this. It would depend too. I'm not going to lie to you guys, because I could see him even doing this sometimes, right? Because of Bruno working off of the attacker with Ruben Amorim as the manager. Trust me, I have seen these things before in the past with the substitutions that have been made and so on and so forth. This is something that can totally happen with Ugarte and Kobe playing in the midfield, Bruno playing as one of the sort of not false nine, but as a like a right forward or left forward or whatever, more specifically right forward, and just working off of the other attackers. This is something that could potentially happen. But what's important to mention is that this team would require a lot of work rate, which he does have with some of the players they've recently bought. So it's very interesting that they bought Ugarte, right? Because Ugarte is a former player that played for Sporting and was an important part for Sporting. And we're going to get to this because it's not a good thing that you are only buying players from your club, because that shows incompetence as a manager. I need to mention this, okay? Ugarte was a former player for Sporting, very important, cooked. Bruno Fernandes, very similar situation, cooked, right? In this team here, if Ruben Amorim were to bring one player that would benefit playing off of this new system because of his incredible passing capabilities, it is Gonzalo Inacio, right? This is a guy that if Manchester United were to go for the center back position, right? Which technically they wouldn't necessarily need, but it would be like getting rid of certain players and then getting new players in. Gonzalo Inacio would be the main guy and the only guy, in my opinion, that I could see like them bringing over. But if we go into a situation with Manchester United where they start bringing in former players like they did with Ten Hag, this shows incompetence in the manager, and I don't think that Ruben Amorim is incompetent in that way. This man can adapt to the personality that his team is going to need. Now, don't get me wrong. You get a new manager like Ruben Amorim, 3 years from now, if you're noticing that there's no identity and nothing is happening, get rid of him and move on, right? If you're not seeing that sort of development, because result is not always the big picture. The big picture is how your team is generally playing, right? So that you can build off of that. But as I'm mentioning, there's a couple of players here that I think would benefit off of developing under Ruben Amorim. Believe it or not, I actually think that Antony has potential to develop under Ruben Amorim. When Marcus Edwards was first at Sporting, honestly, I wasn't really that impressed. I was like, this is, a good squad player to have. But Edwards has been doing better recently, right? So he can develop. Xerxes, I'm going to be honest with you, I could see him playing at striker for sure. But I could also see Ruben Amorim transforming him into that sort of build-up attacker. Because Xerxes is pretty solid at linking up play with the other attackers in the team. I wouldn't put Rashford at striker, to be honest with you. I think he has a lot of potential with Højlund. People are saying, they can get Gyökeres. I don't think the Gyökeres situation is going to happen, if I'm being completely transparent and honest with you guys, right? I think Gonzalo Inacio, if I'm not mistaken, his release clause is not high. I think his release clause is 40, and I think 40 is a disgusting price for him, to be honest. Like, disgusting in a good sense. So if they were to do that for the center back position, there's potential to work with there. Right. And then obviously they would spend the money on Alphonso Davies, because strikers, they technically don't need, because they have Xerxes and Højlund, and they also have Rashford, who, I'm going to be honest, I don't really consider as a striker, but if it's a makeshift striker that you need, then you would put him there in that situation. Right. So it's important to mention this because you need to see the direction of where he's going if he gets signed by this club. You need to see that he's doing something like this that is completely transforming the identity of the club. With Ten Hag, honestly, at first, when he was transferred, I'm going to be honest with you guys, I was like, that's good, because Manchester United currently plays a 4-2-3-1. I want to see a change from this 4-2-3-1 to a different sort of identity. And Ten Hag is a manager that, don't get me wrong, he did play 4-2-3-1s, but he also played 4-3-3s. So I was like, finally, they're going to get a manager that starts playing a 4-3-3 that kind of, in my opinion, suits their team way more than a 4-2-3-1 and with the way that they generally play, right? And it never happened. He just consistently played with the 4-2-3-1, 4-2-3-1, 4-2-3-1 all the time, to the point where this guy, guys, I need to show you this because I thought this was crazy, okay? I was going to see if I can see the bench here, but you can't see the bench here, okay? So I'm just going to tell you what the bench is, okay? So who is on the bench? Casemiro is on the bench. We have Antony in the team. We have Højlund in the team. We have Amad Diallo in the team, so on and so forth. First of all, you look at this team. No matter what the situation is here, okay? Eriksen needs to be playing in the cam position. And at this point, regardless of form, you put Casemiro in that CDM position playing next to Ugart. This to me was crazy. And it's not crazy because, you go off of the opinions of other people like, this is... It doesn't matter if Mazraoui knows how to play in the cam position. You only do that if you don't have the competent players for your team, right? If you have Casemiro on the bench, Casemiro needs to be starting in that CDM position. And then Eriksen, being the creative midfielder that he is, you play him in the cam position. And then what's even worse is that they have, like, Amad... I don't know what Ten Hag's thing is with Amad Diallo, because Diallo's actually a really good player, right? Diallo comes on in the 89th minute when you're playing Mazraoui at cam. It's almost like a slap to his face, to be honest with you. Like, in my opinion, it's like, okay, if you want to play with certain players, Eriksen's got to be at the cam, In my opinion, I wouldn't play Rashford on the right side, personally. Like, I'm saying this like, you can't think in hindsight, like, oh, this is what happened. Oh, but Rashford ended up playing good. No, you can't think in hindsight. You have to think about the moment you have to think about it in the moment. Eriksen has to play at cam, and then you play Amad Diallo on the right side, and then you use Garnacho, and then if you notice Garnacho's not doing much, then you put Rashford on the, you know what I'm saying? You put Rashford on the left side, and then you go from there. But what I'm seeing here, it just it doesn't make any sense, right? So this is where you already knew that something was going to happen. It wasn't going to go down nicely. And then, you go to the result against West Ham, 2-1. I think it was the first time West Ham won in a while. And then you again look at the lineup, right? And now he's using Casemiro, he's using Eriksen, Bruno, Rashford, Højlund, and Garnacho. And it's so funny because we literally go back 2 years ago when I made basically a rant video about Manchester United of needing a player on that right-hand side. And then they go back to using Rashford there. You have literally bought 2 different players with a ton of money, and you're still going back to using Rashford there when that was already initially the problem. Rashford, I'm not saying that Rashford's a bad player. I'm just saying that, like, the way that the team is formatted and the way that the team is run by Manchester United is so stupid, because you look at how poorly run this club is. You buy Sancho, and then Sancho all of a sudden is like, yeah, but I'm more of a left-sided player. You buy Antony off of desperation for 100 million, right? And to be honest with you guys, I could see Antony actually doing a decent job under Ruben Amorim, but obviously with Manchester United and him playing on the right-hand side, it wasn't working out, right? It could work out with the new manager, and if it doesn't, you get rid of the dead weight, okay? But dude, during this time period when Neto was still at Wolves and Manchester United were looking, keyword looking into getting Antony, I was like, what is wrong with this management? Okay, sure. Pedro Neto was a player that was injured, right? But if you get Neto during that time period, I believe he was 50 or 60. I think he sold for 60 recently to Chelsea. But if you get Pedro Neto for 50 or 60, you're saving yourself 40 million that you can now spend in a different area for a player that you could potentially need. For instance, at least maybe, like, bro, it's 40 million. It's so much money. You could have signed like a makeshift left back, right? Because you have 2 left backs that are not in contention to play, right? So you always have to play Diogo Dalot. You could play Mazraoui there. You play Lisandro Martinez at some points there, but you don't have an actual left back who's healthy and can play on a consistent level. Malacia and Luke Shaw are both great players when they're in form and when they're not injured. But do you know what the most important thing is in professional football and professional sports in general? It's availability, and they're not available, right? So that's already a problem itself. And then there's a problem here. If you guys watch my old Man United videos talking about it, I literally mentioned how, like, this is already an issue, right? Playing a system that didn't work initially, and then years later, you're still doing the same thing. So this whole 4-2-3-1, this whole using Rashford on the right side, and like, this had to change, okay? Don't get me wrong, Rashford playing as a right forward in his 3-back, there's a lot of potential to work with there. But guess what? You're playing under a different identity, because you're going to get work rates in your left mid and right mid position that are going to be able to perform a certain way. And the thing is, guys, is that right now, right, even without the use of Davies, you can totally play Dalot here and then just put Mazraoui over here. And I can't do this because EA doesn't let you do this, because they need promo cards for you to get the position changes. Anyways, Mazraoui would be the guy that you would be able to play in that position there too, because he has the work rates for it. He has the capabilities. He has the technicality to play in that sort of position, right? I think with like a lot of potential in like that left-sided area, I really think that Rashford could potentially cook in that area, playing as a left forward, not a striker, a left forward, tricky winger, kind of builds up the play a certain way. But there needs to be work rates coming out of this guy when it comes to defending as well, because Ruben Amorim's team requires that. Pedro Gonçalves and Trincão are both fantastic system players because they are constantly working hard for the team. And then they build up the attack with the striker, right? Pedro Gonçalves didn't have to rely so much on himself when that Gyökeres came in, right? But that's the point of football, is that your team just needs to guarantee results. If you are on paper performing worse, goals and assists wise, that doesn't matter. That's just for the social media merchants. Your team just needs to be getting results with you contributing to the club. Best example of this is Olivier Giroud being one of the best target man players or strikers in the world. And I don't even think he had a shot on target in the World Cup when they won. But he was such an integral part for that win because of the way that he would build up the play with Mbappe and Griezmann if you weren't watching the games with your eyes closed, right? So this is the identity that Ruben Amorim should be bringing to Manchester United if he comes over. He even has a player like Maguire who has, fantastic passing capabilities, right? When, if he's on form or like if he feels good, right? Even he can do well. Amad Diallo playing in that right-sided area, I can see him cook there too, man. I really can. I see a lot of potential with this kid there. I see him with potential on the left-hand side as well, to be honest with you. There's a lot of potential to work with there. But I'm looking at Højlund, right? And I'm like, brother, I could see him cooking. I really can see him cooking under Ruben Amorim. I really can, right? It could be his like new Gyökeres in a sense. Because people are, like I said, people are saying like, oh, why don't they just get Gyökeres? First of all, it's a lot of money. And second of all, you already have two strikers, right? That we can't live in La La Land. That they're gonna. Hey, listen, with Manchester United, they're kind of weird. Maybe they do, and then they sell one of the strikers, or they keep all three. I don't know. We'll see what happens, right? Like if Gyökeres ends up going there, don't get me wrong, you're getting a fantastic striker, but will it happen? Debatable. Like I said, if you're gonna be bringing a former player from a club that you built up, right? Gonzalo Inacio will be that main purchase for a very fair price. And then you're looking into getting Alphonso Davies, who's going to be available for free. And then the main thing that you're going to pay is his wages, which obviously are going to be high, but it's better than getting him for whatever he would cost in that position. And then you would just go from there. These would be the two main ones. But if we go into a situation where Ruben Amorim needs to go and sign former former Sporting players, you're cooked. No. He has been a manager that has been competent enough at adapting his team given the situation that he has and what types of players he needs in the moment. If he needs to keep constantly going back into Sporting, like Ten Hag used to go back to his Ajax team from, I don't even know, like 6 years ago at this point, right? Then you're cooked. The thing is that's great is that these players that he did bring over that were former Ajax players, they are good players. Mazraoui's a good player. Onana has been showing recently that he's a pretty solid goalkeeper. He has his moments of being weird, right? But the goalkeeper position is very tough. Like you're always going to get scrutinized if you do like one little mistake and then you did like 5 crazy saves, right? De Ligt's obviously a great player. And then, they have like I said, Mazraoui. Anthony, a little bit more debatable. We would have to see his progression under Ruben Amorim in the team. But it's just, I'm looking at this team, I'm just like, different identity, and this is so needed in Manchester United right now. Even if he goes over and he starts playing a 4-3-3, right? Because a 4-3-3, you would technically be able to play that sort of thing as well. It depends on how the FIFA mindset. It depends on the tasks that he has set for his midfielders when it comes to attacking with fullbacks, right? If a fullback pushes up and then the other fullback transitions into a 3-back, like you can switch a 4-3-3 into a 3-back easily depending on the transitions of the team in the game, right? So with Manchester United fans, I'm sorry this video is long, but I like talking about football. It's like fun for me, right? You are getting a manager that hopefully, if he brings this over, he is providing a different identity, and I think that this is incredibly important for Manchester United as a club. Now, the other issue that we do have to mention, again, is work rates of the team. The work rates of the team is very, very important to mention because we've had many situations of former players, former managers saying how the team essentially needs to be dissected because there's people that do not work as hard. Ronaldo has a lot of praise for someone like Diogo Dalot, and because Diogo Dalot is a very hard-working player. But we've had moments in the past where Benny McCarthy has said that there's people that do not work as hard. I think Benny McCarthy has specifically called out Dalot as being the player that works hard as well, too, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember reading this. And you guys know me, I love Benny McCarthy because he's a former FC Porto player, and I loved him. I love Benny McCarthy, right? But he's a player that I think was the same guy that said, like, Diogo Dalot is that guy that works hard on the team, and that's important for the team to progress as an actual squad together, right? Ronaldo said the same thing. Ralph Ragnick, when he had that team during that time period, said the whole team needs to be dissected. Technically speaking, that was during that time period, and the team has essentially been dissected. This is a very, very different team than the team that we saw when Ralph Ragnick was the manager. Very different team. Very, very different, right? So with the current players that they have, I can maybe see him signing specifically these two guys, right? I can maybe see them signing some sort of player that can essentially work off of the striker. Like, I think João Felix under Ruben Amorim would cook, to be honest. I think if he had like a João Felix, it wouldn't even necessarily have to be whether it's João Felix or Nkunku, or that it's just that sort of player playing off of these areas, I think would really benefit as well. I'm not saying that they're going to buy Nkunku. I'm just saying the types of players that he is. I think they would benefit off of that. But like I said, I could totally see him, going with something like this in the midfield with Ugart and Kobe, and then just trying out Bruno at the top over here, being the main attacker that works off of the other attackers, because he does work to move up and down the pitch as well, right? So there's a lot of potential to work with there if he ends up getting signed. Again, it's another situation where if you do not see the identity being built after, like, I would say 3 years, 3 years is a really good cutoff in my opinion, then you just have to move on and get something else. But at least when you are looking into a different manager, this is what you should be looking into. I just find it very interesting myself that Alphonso Davies was linked before Ten Hag was fired, because Alphonso Davies for this sort of system would be really helpful to have. And to be honest with you, I think even Luke Shaw and Malacia, especially Malacia when he was on form, I think they would do really well in that left mid position. But again, main thing is obviously availability, which they don't have. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I wouldn't be surprised if he did Anthony at the left side either, but that's a stretch. That one would be a stretch, I would say, but I wouldn't be surprised either. So yeah, a lot of potential to work with. Ruben Amorim is a manager that does have an identity in his team, does have a system that works, but the players that he requires for that system to work is equally as important. So I'm very curious to see what he'll be able to do if he does end up going to Manchester United. But for me, it would be more of an exciting transfer than some other managers. Not Ten Hag, because Ten Hag at first was interesting, but then he just never really changed. Like, he's like, oh, I can never bring the Ajax play style to Man United, but he bought like 6 of their former players. The moment, can I tell you guys something, man? You know where the red flag should have been shown the most? When the red flag should have really been kicked in is when Van de Beek was still on this team and he barely played Van de Beek, when the entirety of social media was like, oh my god, we're gonna get Ten Hag, like this is gonna be the resurgence of Donny Van de Beek, and then he barely played him. It's gonna be the resurgence of him. Like, even when Bruno wasn't available, the resurgence of Donny Van de Beek, barely played him, even when he wasn't available. That should have been your first red flag, right? It should have been your first red flag of going for former I was going to say FC Porto. Sorry, that's just, former Ajax players from, like I said, like 6 years. I don't even remember what year it was that they did well and they lost to Spurs in like the last minute or whatever. Like, like that should have been your first red flag. But are these purchases still good purchases to make right now? Yes, I still think that they're good purchases to have right now. I think they're still fantastic players that can play well in the Ruben Amorim, so it wasn't like it was wasted money. It could be a little bit of wasted money on Anthony, maybe, but I think Anthony could progress. If it's like a similar situation to Edwards, where with consistent game time and stuff, he gets a little bit better, there's potential to work with there, but it all depends. It all depends. But yeah, these two would be the most interesting for me, I think. If they got Gyökeres, that would be great, but I'd be very surprised if they actually went for him with the types of players they need in specific positions. That one is the main one, that left mid area, because right now you would have to use like Diogo Dalot there with Mazraoui, or you switch Mazraoui to the left-hand side with Diogo Dalot, whatever. That's what you would have to do for the most part, right? But yeah, that's pretty much it to mention. There's not really much else to talk about. I just, just wanted to mention a few things here and there. Hopefully you guys enjoy this video. I'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace out, dudes. Love you guys.